everybody, this is Susan, and today we are going to paint some beautiful daffodils. These daffodils right here. Spring has sprung in my neighborhood, and I took a walk this weekend, and the neighborhood is full of daffodils right now. It's just gorgeous. So I was inspired to paint these, and this is also a commission, so it's great when what you want to paint is the same as what you have to paint. So I'm going to show you all my tricks for painting these daffodils. I hope you'll watch and maybe paint along with me. Also, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and you can subscribe to my channel by clicking on the box that's in one of these corners, a little red box, and then you could also click on the bell icon that'll let you know whenever I put out a new video, and that's about once every week. I would just love it if you would do that, and we can watercolor together. So thanks for watching, and here we go. So let's get started with our daffodil painting. I've already got everything I need set up here. I've got my drawing of a daffodil. I've stretched my watercolor paper already and stapled it onto my gator foam, my gator board. That's ready to go. I've got my paints. I've got a mason jar full of clean water. I've got a paper towel. I've got my ink pen, and I have a little masking fluid. And I also have my reference photos. So this is the reference photo that I chose, sorry for the reflections there, to draw from. You can see it's a little different because I added this bud in here just to have a little more balance, I thought, in the picture. And I like it. I like the arrangement, but it looks very flat. There are no shadows in it. No shadows at all. So I took some photos of daffodils when I went for a walk the other day, and I'm going to use those photos to add some more shadow and depth to my my daffodil painting, because if I don't have any shadows in there, it's just not going to look right. You need a little definition. It's going to help make the center trumpet area pop out more and just make it look more realistic. The first thing I want to do is take my ink pen and my masking fluid, and I'm just going to mask off these little stamen in the center. I might want to do something with their color. I don't know. I just want to preserve that area. I'm not going to keep it white. I'm going to paint it yellow, but it's going to help me just not to lose it in all the yellow that's going into this painting already. That took 2 seconds. Now I'm going to wait for that to dry, and then I'm going to start painting in my daffodils. Now that the masking fluid is dried, I'm ready to paint. I think I'm going to be using these two brushes the most. This is a number 6 round, and this is a number 4 round. They're new. I just got them at Michael's, and boy, their supply was picked over. So I just went with what they had, and we'll see. I've never used the Velvet Touch before. And I'm going to start with my bismuth yellow, just painting these leaves that are around the trumpet, very, very watery, pale yellow. It can always go darker easily, but it can be more difficult to lighten things up. So I'd rather start too light than too dark. With my bismuth yellow, it sounds like I'm lisping, bismuth vanadate yellow, I think is the total name of it. And I really, really like this paint. Very sunny. All right, while that's wet, I'm going to go in on the edges with just a little bit of a stronger touch of this bismuth yellow. I don't want too much on my brush. This can be tricky for me to do because it seems like whenever I go wet into wet, it dries really lightly. So be aware of that. You're painting wet into wet, wet paint into wet paper. It will dry very lightly. And I'm darkening these edges because I noticed in my photo, I noticed that the centers of the petals had almost a white stripe on them. Now I'm going to take my wet brush. I'm even going to try and pick up some of this color to reinforce that white in the center of the petal. Now I'm going to dry that with my hair dryer and then work on it a little more. I really prefer working wet into dry than wet into wet, just because I like the control. I like control when I paint, and you don't have as much control when you paint wet and wet, so I'm going to go the way that works best for me. Now I'm mixing up my puddle of New Gamboge, which you can see is a much darker yellow. Ooh, got a bug in here. I'm going to water that down a fair amount though, and then paint in the centers. I'm going to make these daffodils the kind that have the paler outer petals, then the colorful trumpet in the middle, and maybe a little more color around the ruffle that's around the top of the trumpet. Because when you're the artist, you can take license and paint it any way you would like. Okay, now that that's in there, I'm going to take some more of my New Gamboge, and I'm going to go in and strengthen these petals here. This is a little turned over section that is a little more yellow than the rest. Color those in. I'm going to make this one, keep this one light, and put the color on the inside of it to make this tiny curved over section stand out a little more. And then go in and just strengthen this color a little bit, leaving that paler center because I think that's really pretty. So I'm getting in the base color here before I add in my shadows. And I just did a whole video a few weeks ago about adding shadows to the color yellow, which can be very difficult to shade without making it look dirty or messy. Yellow is just so light and close to white, though it can be hard to show up on a white surface like this. Normally, I might put blue behind this, or a purple color, or green, something to make the yellow stand out. However, this is a commission, and I need to do what the client wants, and the client wants a white background, like a botanical illustration. So that's what I'm going with. Now I'm going to come into the center and start strengthening these edges here. So one way to show shadows in yellow is to use an analogous color on the color wheel, a color that's next to yellow. So the colors that are next to yellow on the color wheel are orange and green. I like to go with a warmer color to do a shadow on yellow. I don't want my yellow to look green, and it will easily look green. And that's what I'm going to be doing here. I'm going to start shading my flowers by using an analogous color on them, which is a stronger, darker yellow than New Gamboge. Now to show the center of the flower where it goes in, the center of the trumpet, I'm getting really, really strong New Gamboge. And I'm going to carefully go in around the little ruffles that are on the trumpet. Okay, that's pretty dark. I'll wet my brush and now soften that. I'm just easing that color into the area that's ruffled. All right. So I went from very dark down at the bottom of this section, lightened it up toward the top with more water. Now I'm going to do the same thing using New Gamboge, really, really strong, not much water in it, on this flower. I think you can see it starting to really give it some depth. I'm going to actually add a color. I have right here some Pyrrole orange, however you pronounce it. I'm going to add it to my bismuth yellow and see what happens if I put just a little bit of that around the bottom. There is some shadow with some stronger color where the trumpet meets the petals, and I'm trying to show that. Spread it gently up. I don't want it to go up too far, just up a little bit. And then spread it out just a little bit onto those petals. This flower, the way I drew the bottom of the trumpet, looks wrong to me, so I'm just correcting it with my paint color here. It looks flat, so I'm rounding it out. All right. Now let's spread that out into the petals. All right, now we're going to start with a little bit of shading with a complementary color, which would be a purple. All right, I'm going to put the shadows in, and I am making a change in my color purple that I'm using for the shadows. Instead of using the permanent magenta I was going to use, I'm instead using bright violet on a test piece of paper. I just tried them out, and the permanent magenta made sort of a dirty looking color. The bright violet makes a color that's a little more vibrant. So I'm going to try that, and I'm going to start by just putting in a shadow, pretending like this daffodil is casting a shadow down underneath. And I'm making it up as I go along. Maybe some little shadows under the ruffles also. Then I'm going to shade some around these little edges that are turning up to make them pop more. These flower petals are not all smooth. They do have little wrinkles in them, little ridges. That's the thing I didn't like about my first drawing, is it made them just look smooth and flat, like plastic flowers a little bit. So I'm darkening this shadow behind this trumpet to make the trumpet look like it's coming out a little more. Darkening the area beside a thing that you want to pop out will make it look like it's coming out, make it look more three-dimensional in your painting. I think that's it for the flowers, except for the stamen in the center. So let's get the, what's it called? The masking fluid. Gosh, what's wrong with me? I can't speak. The masking fluid off and paint those little stamen. And they were a very light color and bright, so I'm going to use my bismuth yellow paint them, and then 2 little jobbies on either side of that. I'm going to use my yellow ochre. Now why don't we start with the leaves. The leaves look, like I said, I'm going to use some sap green, I'm going to use phthalo green, and of course I'm going to add some yellows in there, and I think I might add some blues as well. I'm going to add a puddle of my bismuth yellow over here. I'm looking at my images, and it really seems like the stems get a little yellower as I go toward the bottom. So let's start with this fellow over here. I try to paint from left to right since I'm right-handed, and that way my hand doesn't drag through the wet paint. This is a twisting stem, a twisting leaf. So one side is going to be brighter and one side will be lighter because it's the reverse, and that has a more of a blue color to it. Okay, there you go. And you might say, Susan, you have no variation here. It's all sap green. And you would be right, because I'm going to add variation later by glazing over this sap green. This is what I consider my base coat, my base color, and then I can lift off of it or I can add to it. And my base coat for these parts, which are the backs of the leaves, I'm going to try some sap green and a little bit of cerulean blue. Alright, I'm going to dry this and then start adding in some shadows by adding a little bit of my alizarin crimson to my greens. think I'm done. So I hope you liked watching this painting of a daffodil, and I hope you'll try it yourself. Thanks for watching my channel. I know there are a lot of channels you could choose from to watch, and you chose mine, and I really, really appreciate it. And please, please give this video a thumbs up when you have a chance, and you can subscribe to my channel to find out whenever I put out new videos. And if you click the bell icon, it'll let you know when something new comes up, which is typically once a week. So thanks so much for watching, and take care. Happy painting. Bye.